Dr. Hana Kim pressed her face against the cold window of the research ship. The old space station floated in the darkness like a dead whale. Its metal walls were covered in strange marks and symbols from dozens of alien species. The station had been empty for over 300 years, but something about it made Hana feel uneasy. "Are you sure about this, Dr. Kim?" asked Tae Minho from behind her. The young engineer was checking his tools for the third time. "The readings from that station are really strange." Hana turned around and smiled at him. "Strange is exactly what we're looking for, Tae. That's why we're here." Captain Yuki Lee walked into the room, her boots making sharp sounds on the metal floor. She was a tall woman with short black hair and serious eyes. "The docking tube is ready, but I want you both to be careful in there. We don't know what kind of technology those aliens left behind." Hana nodded and picked up her scanner. She had spent 5 years studying alien technology. But this station was different from anything she had seen before. The energy readings were all wrong. There was too much power still running through the station for something that had been abandoned so long ago. They walked through the docking tube and into the station. The air was thin but breathable. Emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. The walls were covered in writing from many different alien species. Some words glowed softly, others seemed to pulse like heartbeats. "This place gives me the creeps," Tae whispered. He held his scanner close to his chest like a shield. Hana was already moving deeper into the station. Her scanner was beeping quickly now. "There's something big running here, Tae. Really big. The power signature is enormous." They walked through corridor after corridor. The station was huge, much bigger than it had looked from outside. Some rooms were filled with strange machines that hummed quietly. Others had pools of glowing liquid that moved without any wind. But it was all empty of life. Then they found the door. It was at the end of a long hallway, and it was different from all the others. This door was 3 times taller than Hana, and made of some kind of crystal that seemed to contain tiny stars. Words in dozens of languages covered its surface, but they all seemed to say the same thing. "Proving ground authorized personnel only." "Should we go in?" Tae asked. His voice was shaking a little. Hana was already running her scanner over the door. "The energy readings are off the charts in there. Whatever this is, it's the heart of the station." The door opened by itself as they approached. Beyond it was a room so large that Hana couldn't see the other side. In the center was a machine that looked like a giant egg made of light and metal. Cables and tubes connected it to hundreds of smaller machines around the room. "It's a quantum simulation chamber," Hana said, her voice full of wonder. "But it's enormous. You could fit an entire planet in there." Tae was reading his scanner with wide eyes. "Hana, this thing is still running." "It's been running for centuries. And there's something alive inside it." Hana felt her heart start beating faster. "Alive? What do you mean alive?" "I mean there are life signs. Lots of them. 47 different signatures, all different species." Hana walked closer to the machine. Through the glowing walls, she could see shapes moving around. It looked like a world in there. Green trees, blue water, mountains and valleys. And moving through it all were creatures she had never seen before. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Why would anyone leave a simulation running for 300 years? Tae found a control panel that was still working. The symbols on it were in the old Galactic Confederation language, which Hana could read a little. "It says here that this is a testing ground for young aliens." Hana felt a cold feeling in her stomach. "Young? You mean children?" "That's what it looks like." "But Hana, if they've been in there for 300 years, they would have grown up by now, or died." Hana started working on the control panel, trying to get more information. But these life signs are small. They're still young. After an hour of work, Hana managed to access the station's old records. What she found made her hands shake. The simulation had been designed to slow down time inside. 300 years outside meant only about 20 years inside. The creatures in there had grown up, but slowly. "Look at this," she said to Tae. "Every species in the Confederation used to send their best young people here. They would stay for a few years, learn to survive on their own, then their families would come get them." "Used to?" "The records show that every species came back for their children. Every single one." Hana's voice got quieter, except these 47. "They were just left here." Tae looked at the simulation chamber with new eyes. "You mean those are children who were abandoned?" Hana nodded. She was looking at the readings more carefully now. Some of the life signs were getting weaker, and some of them are dying. The control panel started flashing red warnings. The simulation's power systems were failing. The artificial world inside was breaking down. Food systems were shutting off. Weather control was going wrong. The 47 children inside were facing storms and hunger and cold. "We have to help them," Hana said. Tay grabbed her arm. "Hana, we can't just go in there. We don't know what those creatures are like. They could be dangerous. They're children, Tay. Scared, hungry children who have been alone for 20 years. But they're alien children. We don't know anything about their biology or their culture. We could make things worse." Hana looked at the simulation chamber again. Through the glowing walls, she could see small shapes huddled together in the cold. Some were trying to build shelters. Others were searching for food. They all looked lost and afraid. "I have to try," she said. "I can't just watch them die." Tay sighed. "Captain Lee is going to be really angry about this. Then we won't tell her until after I'm inside." Hana started preparing the neural interface that would let her enter the simulation. It was dangerous technology. If something went wrong, her mind could be trapped inside forever. But as she watched the children struggle to survive in their dying world, she knew she had no choice. "How long will it take?" Tay asked. "I don't know. Time moves differently in there. A few hours outside could be days inside. And if the simulation fails while you're in there?" Hana didn't answer. They both knew what would happen. If the simulation collapsed, she would die with it. But as she put on the neural helmet, Hana thought about her own childhood. She remembered being scared and alone when her parents died. She remembered how much it meant when her teacher, Mrs. Park, took her in and made her feel safe again. These children had been alone for 20 years. They deserved to know that someone cared enough to try to save them. "If something happens to me," she told Tay, "make sure Captain Lee knows why I did this." Tay nodded, his eyes full of worry. "Be careful in there, Hana." The world dissolved around her as the neural interface activated. When it cleared, Hana was standing in a forest under an alien sky. The air smelled of flowers and rain, but also of fear and sadness. Somewhere in this world were 47 children who had been forgotten by everyone except her. It was time to bring them home. Hana's feet touched soft grass, but the world around her felt wrong. The sky was too green, and 3 different colored suns hung in it like broken Christmas lights. The air tasted sweet but made her nose burn a little. This was definitely not a world made for humans. She looked down at herself and gasped. Her body was different, taller, with skin that seemed to change color slightly in the strange light. The simulation had given her a form that could survive in this alien environment. It felt weird, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. A sound made her freeze. Something was moving through the trees nearby. Hana crouched down and tried to make herself small. She didn't know if the creatures here would see her as a friend or an enemy. The bushes parted and Hana saw her first abandoned child. It looked like a walking crystal, about the size of a 10-year-old human. Its body was made of clear blue stone that caught the light from the 3 suns and threw rainbows everywhere. But the crystal was cracked in several places and some pieces were missing. The creature looked hurt and tired. "Please," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "Do you have any food?" "The fruit trees stopped working 3 days ago." Hana's heart broke a little. The creature's voice was so young and scared. She stood up slowly, keeping her hands where it could see them. "I don't have food, but maybe I can help you find some." "What's your name?" The crystal child stepped back, afraid. "You're not one of us. Are you one of the caretakers? Are you here to fix things?" "My name is Hana. I'm here to help." "What's your name?" "I'm Vel. I try to keep everyone together, but it's hard. We're all so different, and the world keeps breaking." Vel led Hana through the forest to a clearing where more children were gathered. Hana had to stop and stare. She had studied alien species for years, but seeing their children was completely different. There was Kix, who looked like a dolphin but with 6 fins and scales that glowed soft blue. She was lying in a shallow pool that was getting smaller every hour. "The water tastes wrong," Kix said weakly. "It makes my gills burn." Near a pile of rocks sat Nort, who looked like he was made of living metal and stone. He was bigger than the others and had sharp edges all over his body. When any of the smaller children got too close, he made loud scraping sounds that scared them away. But Hana could see that he was trying to protect them, not hurt them. There were others too. A child that looked like a moving plant with flowers for eyes, one that seemed to be made of clouds and light, and dozens more. Each one was different from all the others. Each one looked lost and afraid. "How long have you been taking care of them?" Hannah asked Vel. "Since the caretaker stopped working, right? Maybe 2 years now. It's hard to tell time here. The suns don't set like they used to." Hannah looked around the clearing. The children had tried to build shelters, but they were all wrong for each other. What worked for Nort would crush the Cloud Child. What Kix needed would drown the Plant Child. They were trying to live together, but their needs were completely different. "The food machine stopped working first," Vel continued. "Then the weather control. Now the water system is failing. I try to fix things, but I don't know how." A loud rumbling sound came from the sky. Dark clouds were gathering, and they didn't look natural. Lightning flashed, but it was the wrong color. Purple and green instead of white. "Storm coming," said Nort in a voice like grinding rocks. "Bad storm. Everyone hide." The children started running in different directions, but they had nowhere safe to go. Their shelters wouldn't protect them from what was coming. Hannah made a quick decision. "Everyone follow me," she shouted. "I know where we can be safe." She led them to a cave she had spotted earlier. It was dry and had several chambers that might work for different types of children. As they settled in, Hannah started to understand the real problem. These weren't just children from different species. They were children whose own families had given up on them. The record she had read on the station told the story. Vel was too small for her crystal species. They valued size and strength. Kix had been born with gills that worked differently from others of her kind. Nort was too gentle for his rock people who prized aggression and hardness. Every child here had been rejected by their own people for being different. The storm hit hard. Rain poured down like bullets and the wind screamed through the trees. The children huddled together, but even that was difficult. Nort was too hot for some of them. Kix was too wet, and the Plant Child needed light that the others found too bright. "This is impossible," Vel said sadly. "We're too different. We can't all live together." Hannah watched them struggle and felt something click in her mind. These children reminded her of something from Earth's history. She remembered reading about the early days of human civilization, when different tribes had to learn to work together to survive. "What if being different is actually good?" she said. The children looked at her like she was crazy. "Think about it," Hannah continued. "Nort, you're hot, right? And some of the others are always cold. What if you could share your heat with them?" Nort's rocky face showed surprise. You want me to get close to them? But I might hurt them. Not if we're careful. And Kix, your gills filter water, right? What if the water that's bad for you is good for someone else after you filter it?" Kix lifted her head from her shrinking pool. "You think my broken gills might help someone? I think your gills work exactly the way they're supposed to work. Just not the way your species expected." As the storm raged outside, Hannah started to see connections everywhere. The Plant Child made oxygen that the others needed. The Cloud Child could carry water from one place to another. Even their differences in size and shape meant they could work together in ways their parents had never imagined. But first, she had to get them to trust each other. And trust her. "I know you don't know me," Hannah said to all of them. "And I know some of your species taught you to be afraid of humans. But I want you to know something about my people. We believe that being different makes you stronger, not weaker." "That's not what our parents said," whispered one of the smaller children. "Then maybe your parents were wrong." The words hung in the air like a challenge. For 20 years, these children had believed that they were broken, that they didn't belong anywhere. The idea that they might actually be perfect the way they were was almost too big to understand. Outside, the storm was getting worse. The cave shook and water started dripping from the ceiling. But inside, something was changing. Nort slowly moved closer to the children who were shivering from cold. Kix let some of the others drink from her pool after she had filtered it. The Plant Child adjusted her light to be gentler on the others' eyes. For the first time in 20 years, the abandoned children were working together instead of just surviving separately. "Why are you helping us?" Vel asked Hannah. Hannah thought about her answer carefully. "Because where I come from, we have a saying, no child should be left behind. Not for any reason, even if they're different, especially if they're different." As the storm finally began to calm down, Hannah realized that the hardest part was still ahead. She had to figure out how to save 47 children who needed completely different things to survive. And she had to do it before the simulation failed completely. But for the first time since entering this world, she felt hope. The children were starting to believe in themselves. And Hana was starting to understand that humans might have something unique to offer the galaxy after all. 3 days had passed since the storm, and Hana was learning something new about each child every hour. She sat cross-legged in the morning light, watching Vel teach the smaller children how to find clean water by looking at the way light bent through her crystal body. It was beautiful, but Hana could see that Vel was getting weaker. "Your body is cracking more," Hana said gently. Vel touched one of the new cracks on her arm. "It happens when I get too tired. My people value strength, but I was always fragile. That's why they left me here." What if fragile isn't the same as weak? Before Vel could answer, a terrible sound echoed across the forest. It was like metal screaming. The ground shook and several of the children cried out in fear. "The caretaker machines," Nort said, his voice full of worry. "They're breaking down faster now." Hana looked up at the sky and saw dark spots spreading across it like holes. The simulation was failing and failing fast. Soon whole sections of this world would become unlivable. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Maybe 2 weeks," Vel said. "Then the life support systems will shut down completely." Hana felt panic rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. Panic wouldn't help these children. She needed to think like a human, find patterns, make connections, solve problems. "Okay," she said. "We need to work together better than we ever have before. Everyone, show me what you can do. Everything. Even the things your species told you were useless." Over the next few hours, Hana watched each child demonstrate their abilities. What she saw amazed her. Kix could filter any liquid through her gills, removing toxins and making it safe. But her people had rejected her because she couldn't filter things as fast as normal members of her species. Nort could shape metal and stone with his hands, creating tools and structures. But his people had cast him out because he preferred to build things rather than break them. The plant child, who was named Bloom, could grow almost anything if she had the right soil and light. But her people had abandoned her because she grew flowers instead of food. The cloud child, called Drift, could carry things through the air and change the weather in small areas. But his people had left him because he was too solid. He couldn't become as light as clouds were supposed to be. As Hana watched them, she started to see something that none of their species had seen. These children weren't broken versions of their people. They were bridges between different types of life. "Bloom," she said excitedly. "What happens when you grow flowers?" "They make the air smell nice," Bloom said sadly. "But that's not useful. Flowers don't feed anyone. But they make seeds, right? And those seeds could grow food for others?" I never thought about that." "And Drift, you said you're too solid for your people. But what if that means you can carry things that other cloud people can't?" Drift's misty form brightened a little. "You think being different is actually better?" "I think being different is exactly what we need right now." Hana started putting the children into groups, but not the way their species would have done it. Instead, she grouped them by how they could help each other. Nort and Vel worked together to build new tools. Nort's strength shaped the metal, while Vel's crystal body could focus light into precise beams that could cut or weld. Neither could do it alone, but together they were amazing. Kix and Bloom found that Kix's filtered water helped Bloom grow plants that could survive in the changing environment. The plants then cleaned the air for everyone else. Drift and some of the smaller children learned to work as a team, with Drift carrying them to places they couldn't reach on their own. But just as things were starting to work, everything went wrong. The sky split open with a sound like thunder, and part of the forest simply disappeared. Where trees had been moments before, there was now empty space, not even ground, just nothing. "The simulation is collapsing," Vel cried. "We have to move." They ran through the forest as sections of the world blinked out of existence behind them. Mountains vanished. Lakes dried up in seconds. The 3 suns in the sky flickered like broken lights. They reached a valley that seemed more stable than the rest of the world, but it was too small for all of them to live comfortably. The children started to panic. "There's not enough room," said one of the middle-sized children. "Some of us will have to leave." "No," Hana said firmly. "We stay together. All of us, but look around," Vel said, her crystal body dim with exhaustion. "This space is only big enough for maybe half of us, and we don't even know what we need to survive. Our foods are all different. Our air needs are different. Some of us need water, others need heat, others need light. It's impossible." For a moment, Hana felt the weight of the problem crushing down on her. Vel was right. These children needed completely different things to survive. How could she possibly create an environment that worked for everyone? Then she remembered something from her training. Human cities. They were full of different types of people with different needs. But they worked because humans had learned to build spaces that could adapt. What if we don't try to make one space that works for everyone? She said slowly. What if we make lots of small spaces that work together? I don't understand, said Nort, like a puzzle. Each piece is different, but they all fit together to make something bigger. Hana started sketching in the dirt with a stick. Nort, you can shape stone and metal, right? What if you built different types of rooms? Some wet for kicks, some hot for the heat lovers, some dark for those who need it. But how would we connect them all? Drift could carry air between them. Kicks could carry water. Bloom could grow connecting tunnels with her plants. The children looked at her drawing with wonder. Instead of trying to make everyone live in the same space, Hana was suggesting they build a community where everyone could live the way they needed to, but still be together. It could work, Vel said quietly, but it would take all of us working together. Every single one. That's the point, Hana said. Your species all thought you were failures because you couldn't do things their way. But maybe their way was never the right way for you. Maybe you were meant to do something completely new. As they started to build, Hana felt something she hadn't expected. She was learning too. These children were teaching her things about cooperation and adaptation that humans had never figured out. They were showing her what was possible when beings who were completely different chose to work together instead of trying to be the same. But there was something else she was learning, something that made her feel cold inside. As she studied the children more closely, she realized that they weren't just different from their species. They were different in ways that their species had found threatening. Vel's ability to focus light could be used as a weapon if she wanted. Nort's gentleness made him a better builder than the warriors his people prized. Kix's filtering ability made her nearly impossible to poison. Bloom could grow plants that could break through any barrier. These children hadn't been abandoned because they were weak. They had been abandoned because they were different in ways that challenged how their species thought the world should work. And now, working together, they were becoming something that none of their species had ever imagined. A group that was stronger because of their differences, not in spite of them. Hana realized she wasn't just saving 47 abandoned children. She was helping to create something entirely new, something that might change how the entire galaxy thought about cooperation and community. The question was, would the galaxy be ready for what these children were becoming? Hana woke up to the sound of Tay's voice crackling through the communication device in her ear. She was lying in the shelter that the children had built, an amazing structure where each room was perfectly designed for different types of life, all connected by living tunnels that Bloom had grown. Hana, you need to get out of there right now, Tay was saying, and his voice was full of panic. Captain Lee just got a message from the Confederation. They're sending ships. Hana sat up carefully, trying not to wake Kix, who was sleeping in a pool of water next to her. Ships? What kind of ships? Military ships. They have orders to extract you and destroy the simulation. Destroy it? Hana's voice rose, and several of the children stirred. Why would they destroy it? I don't know, but Captain Lee is trying to stall them. She told them you need more time to finish your research. But Hana, they'll be here in 6 hours. Hana felt her heart sink. 6 hours wasn't enough time to get all 47 children out of the simulation safely. The neural transfer process took time, and some of the children had biologies that made it even more complicated. There's something else, Tay continued. I've been digging through more of the station's records. Hana, I don't think these children were forgotten by accident. What do you mean? I found files that are classified at the highest levels. The Confederation knew exactly where these children were. They chose to leave them here. Hana felt sick. That's impossible. No species would abandon their own children on purpose. I'm sending you the files now. Read them yourself. The data flowed into Hana's neural interface, and what she read made her feel cold all over. Each child had detailed records. Medical reports, psychological evaluations, genetic analyses, and at the bottom of each file was the same stamp. Specimen unsuitable for integration. Permanent isolation recommended. Vel wasn't just smaller than her crystal people. Her body structure was different in ways that allowed her to focus energy more precisely than any of her species ever could. Her people had seen this as a threat to their traditional ways of fighting and building. Nort wasn't just gentler than his rock people. His ability to shape metal and stone was far beyond normal limits. His people had feared that he might change their entire culture of destruction and warfare. Kix's gills didn't just work differently, they worked better. She could filter toxins that would kill others of her species. Her people had worried that she might make their traditional medicine obsolete. Every single child had been abandoned not because they were broken, but because they were threatening to their own species. They represented change, evolution, growth, and their people had chosen fear over progress. They weren't abandoned children, Hana whispered. They were exiled revolutionaries. What? Said Vel, who had woken up and overheard. Hana turned to face the crystal child and saw that other children were waking up too. They all looked at her with trust and hope, and Hana's heart broke knowing what she had to tell them. I found out why you were really left here, she said gently. The children gathered around her as she explained what she had learned. At first, they didn't believe it. Then some of them got angry. Others started crying. A few just sat in silence, staring at nothing. So we were never going to be rescued, said Bloom, her flower eyes dim with sadness. Our families never meant to come back for us. They were afraid of us, Nort said, his voice like grinding stone. They thought we were dangerous. Maybe we are dangerous, said Drift, his cloud-like body getting darker. Maybe they were right to fear us. No, Hana said firmly. You're not dangerous. You're different. And difference isn't something to fear. It's something to celebrate. Easy for you to say, snapped one of the older children. Your people didn't throw you away. The words hit Hana like a physical blow because they weren't entirely true. Humans had their own history of fearing and rejecting people who were different, but they had also learned, slowly and painfully, that diversity made them stronger. You're right, she said quietly. My people haven't always been good at accepting differences either. We've made terrible mistakes, but we learned something important. When we work together, despite our differences, we become better than any of us could be alone. Pretty words, said Vel, but her light was very dim. But what does it matter now? The Confederation is coming to destroy us anyway. That's when Hana made a decision. That would change everything. Then we don't let them, she said. She activated her communication device to broadcast to the ship. Tay, Captain Lee, are you listening? We're here, Captain Lee's voice came through clearly. I need you to record everything I'm about to say, and I need you to broadcast it on all human frequencies to every human ship and colony and planet. Hana, what are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Hana stood up in the center of the children's shelter and began to speak. She told the story of the 47 children, not as abandoned specimens, but as young beings who had been exiled for the crime of being different. She described their abilities, their kindness, their courage in the face of 20 years of isolation. She told how they had learned to work together in ways their own species never could, how they had built something beautiful from their differences, how they had shown her what true cooperation looked like, and she told how the Confederation was coming to destroy them simply because their existence was embarrassing to the species that had thrown them away. These children are not failures, she said, her voice growing stronger. They are pioneers. They are showing us what the future could look like if we stop fearing difference and start celebrating it. As she spoke, she could see the children around her sitting up straighter, their natural lights and colors getting brighter. They were remembering who they really were, not broken specimens, but unique individuals with gifts their people had been too afraid to appreciate. The Confederation ships will be here soon, Hana continued. They have orders to destroy this simulation and everyone in it. I'm asking every human who hears this to remember what we believe, that every life has value, that diversity makes us stronger, and that no child should be thrown away for being different. When she finished speaking, there was silence for a long moment. Then Ty's voice came through the communicator. Hana, you're getting responses. Lots of them. Human ships all across this sector are changing course to come here. How many ships? Dozens, maybe hundreds. And they're all broadcasting the same message. No child left behind. Captain Lee's voice cut in. Hana, I'm getting reports that human colonies are demanding the Confederation explain these children. Some human representatives are calling for emergency meetings. You've started something big. But even as hope began to grow, Hana knew the real test was still coming. The Confederation ships were almost here, and they had enough firepower to destroy the entire station if they wanted to. The 47 children were still trapped in a failing simulation, and Hana was the only thing standing between them and oblivion. "What happens now?" asked Hana, looked around at all the children, crystal and metal, plant and cloud, and dozens of other forms of life she had learned to love over the past weeks. They were scared, but they were also standing together, united in a way their own species had never been. "Now we find out if the galaxy is ready to change," she said. Outside the simulation, she could feel the vibrations of ships arriving. Some were human, coming to help. Others were Confederation vessels coming to destroy. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of 47 abandoned children, but the future of how different species could live and work together. The battle for the children's lives was about to begin. The space around the ancient station looked like a war was about to start. Confederation ships hung in the darkness like metal sharks, their weapons charged and ready. But surrounding them were human vessels of every size and type. Research ships, cargo haulers, even private family cruisers. They had come from across the galaxy when they heard Hana's broadcast. Inside the simulation, Hana felt the children press closer to her as the station shook from the ships docking and undocking outside. The 47 had formed a circle around her, each one different but all united in their fear and hope. "Are the human ships here to help us?" asked Bloom, her flower eyes glowing with nervous light. "Yes," Hana said, though she wasn't entirely sure what help they could provide against Confederation military vessels. Captain Lee's voice crackled through Hana's communicator. "Hana, you need to hear this. The Confederation commander is demanding that all human ships leave immediately. He says this is an internal Confederation matter." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that children in danger is a human matter, no matter whose children they are." Through her neural link, Hana could access the station's external cameras. What she saw outside made her gasp. The human ships had arranged themselves in a protective formation around the station. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned by the Confederation fleet, but they weren't backing down. "Captain Lee," came an official voice over the communication channels, "you are interfering with Confederation justice. Those specimens in the simulation are classified as dangerous anomalies that must be contained. Their names are Vel, Kix, Nort, Bloom, and 43 others." Captain Lee replied calmly. "They are children, not specimens. And no human ship will move until we know they are safe." Hana felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. This was what made humans special. Not superior technology or strength, but the willingness to risk everything for those who couldn't protect themselves. But the Confederation commander wasn't finished. "Captain Lee, our records show that Dr. Kim has been in that simulation for over a week. She may be compromised by prolonged exposure to alien neural patterns. For her own safety, she must be extracted immediately." Hana realized what they were trying to do. If they could claim she was mentally compromised, they could justify removing her from the simulation and then destroying it. "Tay," she said into her communicator, "I need you to establish a live feed from the simulation to all the human ships. I want everyone to see exactly what's happening in here." "Already working on it," Tay replied. "Give me 2 minutes." Those 2 minutes felt like hours. The children huddled closer together as the station continued to shake. Some of the younger ones were crying, and even the older ones looked terrified. "I'm scared," whispered Drift, his cloud-like form flickering with anxiety. "I know," Hana said gently. "But remember, being scared doesn't mean we're not brave. It means we're being brave even though we're scared." "What if they destroy us anyway?" asked Val. "What if the human ships can't stop them?" Hana looked around at all the children, at their unique forms and their frightened but trusting faces. In the past weeks, she had watched them transform from scared, isolated individuals into a community that worked together beautifully despite their differences. "Then at least the galaxy will know who you really are," she said. "Not the broken specimens your people claimed you were, but the amazing individuals you've always been." "Feed is live," Tay announced. "Every human ship in the fleet can see inside the simulation now." Hana stood up in the center of the children's circle. She knew that thousands of humans were watching, and she wanted them to see exactly what the Confederation wanted to destroy. "My name is Dr. Hana Kim," she said, speaking not just to the children but to all the watching humans. "I'm standing with 47 children who were abandoned by their own species for the crime of being different. I want you to see what they've built together." She walked through their community, showing the cameras the amazing structures the children had created. Rooms perfectly adapted for different types of life, all connected by living bridges that Bloom had grown. Water systems that Kix had designed to be pure and safe for everyone. Tools and furniture that Nort had shaped to be comfortable for wildly different body types. "This is what cooperation looks like," Hana said. "This is what happens when beings choose to celebrate their differences instead of fear them." As she spoke, something was happening on the human ships. Tay was monitoring their communications, and he reported that families were volunteering to adopt the alien children. Scientists were offering to study their unique abilities, not as specimens, but as teachers who might help humans understand new ways of living and working together. Most importantly, human political leaders were demanding that the Confederation explain why children had been abandoned and marked for destruction. "Hana," Captain Lee's voice came through urgently, "the Confederation fleet is moving into attack position. Their commander says he won't be deterred by human sentiment." Hana felt her heart sink. The human ships were brave, but they couldn't actually fight the Confederation military. Too many people would die, and the children would still be destroyed in the end. That's when Vel stepped forward. "Dr. Kim," the crystal child said, her body glowing brighter than Hana had ever seen it. "We want to try something." "What do you mean?" "All of us working together. We've been thinking about what you said, about being bridges between different types of life. What if we could be a bridge between humans and the Confederation too?" Before Hana could ask what she meant, the children began to move. They arranged themselves in a complex pattern around the simulation chamber's central core. Each child took a position that seemed random but felt somehow perfect. "What are you doing?" Hana asked. "We're going to talk to them," said Nort, "all of them. Every ship out there. Not with words, but with who we are." The children joined hands, crystal touching metal, plant embracing cloud, solid connecting with liquid. As they linked together, something amazing happened. Their individual abilities began to combine and amplify each other. Vel's crystal body focused and magnified the energy that flowed between them. Nort shaped it into coherent patterns. Bloom's biological systems gave it life and growth. Drift carried it beyond the boundaries of their physical forms. Together, they created something that had never existed before, a communication that wasn't based on language or technology, but on pure understanding. It flowed out from the simulation, through the station systems, and into every ship in the surrounding fleet. Every being who felt it, human, Confederation or otherwise, suddenly understood exactly what the children had experienced. 20 years of loneliness and fear, but also hope and growth. The pain of being rejected by their own families, but also the joy of finding a new kind of belonging with each other. The communication carried their memories, their dreams, their courage in the face of abandonment. It showed how they had learned to turn their differences into strengths, their isolation into innovation. And it asked a simple question. If children who were abandoned and forgotten could learn to work together this beautifully, what could all the species of the galaxy accomplish if they chose cooperation over fear? The effect was immediate and profound. On human ships, people were crying as they felt the children's pain and wonder. On Confederation vessels, crew members were questioning orders they had never thought to doubt. But most importantly, on ships belonging to the species that had abandoned the children, families were learning for the first time what they had thrown away. "Hana," Captain Lee's voice was full of awe. "The Confederation commander is standing down. He's requesting permission to come aboard the station for negotiations." Negotiations? Several species are demanding to see their abandoned children. They want to apologize. Through the simulation sensors, Hana could feel something changing in the space around them. The tension that had threatened war was dissolving into something else. Shame, wonder, and a growing desire to understand. "We did it," whispered Vel, her crystal form now glowing so brightly it was almost painful to look at. "We showed them who we really are." "No," Hana said, putting her hand on Vel's faceted shoulder. "You showed them who they could be." Over the next few hours, everything changed. Species representatives came to the station to meet the children they had abandoned. Some came to apologize, others to learn, and a few to try to take their children back. But the children had their own ideas about that. "We'll visit," Bloom told the representatives from her plant people. "We'll teach you what we learned here. But this is our home now. This is where we belong." The simulation was expanded and improved. becoming a permanent sanctuary that the children named Haven Station. Instead of a place where the unwanted were hidden away, it became a center of learning where beings from across the galaxy could come to study cooperation and adaptation. Hana became the station's first director, but she was never really in charge. The 47 children governed themselves, making decisions together in ways that amazed visiting diplomats and scientists, and they welcomed new arrivals, not just the abandoned and rejected, but anyone who wanted to learn what was possible when differences were celebrated instead of feared.